Hello everyone, welcome to another short video. In this video, we are going to look at NAT64 in Palo Alto. So on the screen, you can see the topology, which I'm going to use to explain this NAT64. We also saw the NAT64 stuff when we discussed about IPv6 addressing over a Palo Alto layer 3 interface. So in this video, we are going to talk about the components you need for the NAT64 work and also what config is needed on the firewall end. So in order for NAT64 to work, first thing you need is, you know, a DNS64 server. Okay. So what is a DNS64 server? Whenever this IPv6 client needs address of a website, like it needs to go to www.google.com, it will go to DNS server, DNS64 server, and it'll ask DNS server, I want to talk to www.google.com, and suppose google.com only runs on IPv4. So this server will go out, get the IPv4 address of the www.google.com, okay, and then this server will convert this IPv4 address to an IPv6 address, which is used for NAT64, translation range. There is a specific range. It will translate that IPv4 address to a specific IPv6 address that is used for NAT64 translation and then give it to the client. So what client gets? Client will get an IPv6 address in return of the DNS query, and that IPv6 address will be created with the respective IPv4 address of the www.google.com. And then the client will send a request, source IP as IPv6, destination IP as IPv6, which it got from the DNS64 server towards the Palo Alto firewall. And then the Palo Alto firewall is going to get that packet and it will see, okay, source is IPv6, destination is IPv6, but the destination is in NAT64 range and I have a NAT policy for it. And then what Palo Alto is going to do, Palo Alto is going to change this client's IPv6 source to a IPv4 source, and that specific IPv6 destination to an IPv6 destination, IPv4 destination, okay, which is really the really the original address of the www.google.com, which this DNS64 server got, you know. Now let's have a look how the things look on the Palo Alto. So let's go to the Palo Alto. Under the policies in the NAT section, I already have a rule for the NAT64. I'll show you with this rule, guys. So like general tab stuff remains the same across all NAT policies. It's just the NAT type that differs. You need to select a NAT64 whenever you have to do a NAT64 NAT. Original packet coming from LAN zone, going to WAN zone, what is the source address? Under the destination address, you have to mention the range, NAT64 translation range. Okay. If this is the destination address, or, you know, if this is the destination address, then Palo Alto knows how to convert it to its respective IPv4 destination. I'll show you how that is done as well. And then on the translated packet, you see source is being translated to an IPv4 address and the destination is kept unchanged. But if the destination is in this range, Palo Alto will automatically change it. You do not need to do anything. Okay. Palo Alto will do it automatically. Now, let's have a look how this translation really happens. So this is the range 64 colon FF. Let me just copy it from here if I can, or I'll copy it from the rule. Packet. And I'll just pop up my notepad to show you guys how the translation really looks like. Once again. Yeah, this. So here is my notepad. So this is the entire range, okay, for the NAT64 translation. If you know, IPv6 address length is IPv6 address length is 128 bits, okay, 128 bits, and IPv4 address length is 32 bits. So if you see its slash value is 96, okay, if you add like 32 to this value, then it will become 128. Okay, so NAT64 translation has given a range where it can accommodate all IPv4 addresses. Okay, entire 32-bit. So suppose if you have a IPv4 address saying as 8.8.8, and I want its respective NAT64 address, then that would be this value, and then IPv6 address, each block is 16 bits block. And in case of IPv4, 16 bits will be these 16 bits and these 16 bits. Okay. So how do we mention it here? First 16 bits, 08 colon 08. That's what will be our IPv6 address, the respective IPv6 address for the NAT64 translation that will be, given by the DNS64 server. Okay, so 16 per 16. Let me just double check it. So it's 8. 8 means 0 and 8. Then there will be a 1, so it will be 08. It will be 08 again, and there will be more zeros. These 8 and 8 will be 16, so it will, oh sorry, I forgot. It would be 0808 and 0808. That's why I was thinking why there are less number of bits, because these are only 8 bits. These are again 8 bits. So in order to make it, so these 8 is this, and this 08 is this 8, and then similarly these two are these two. So now it completes its NAT64 server, NAT64 address. And the DNS64 server will supply this address to our client when it gets 8.8.8 from the upstream server. Okay. And when our client will send that packet to the Palo Alto, what Palo Alto is going to do, it's going to translate the destination automatically to 8.8.8, and source will be translated to this specific IP address. Okay. Let's see if I can get any logs related to that specific stuff. Just 1 second. I'll copy this. We did 11 past. I'll say destination in this. Yeah, I want to check it for all time. Yeah, looks like my logs have been gone. I did this test a few days back, so there are no logs for it. No problem. But yeah, I'll put the link of the video where we did a demo of NAT64, and in that video you can see I have been showing a log as well, for the respective NAT64 translation. So that was about NAT64, and the main component required to do the NAT64 stuff when you have IPv6 only infrastructure and your client needs to communicate over a to an IPv4 destination, then you need a DNS64 server in your infrastructure. Yep. Thank you for your time. That's it for this video. Have a good day.